All right, let's connect two things that you would probably never, ever think belong together. A 500-year-old accounting book and the very future of artificial intelligence. Now, I know that sounds a little crazy, but what if I told you that the secret to getting AI to trust your business was actually figured out way back in 1494 in Florence? Let's dive into how this ancient idea is completely reshaping our digital world. You know, it all comes down to a really basic question we have to answer all the time, especially in business. How do you trust someone you have never met? How do you really know it's a good idea to partner with them or invest or even just buy something from a company you just found online? That right there, that's the core problem of building trust when you're trying to grow.
See, it really boils down to two different kinds of trust. First, there's personal trust. That's the trust you have with a friend. It's built on relationships, which is great, but it's slow and it just doesn't scale. But then you have systematic trust. This kind is fast, it's scalable, and it relies on cold, hard evidence, not on who you know. And for business, for commerce, to really work on a large scale, you absolutely need that second kind.
So to really get how this works, we need to jump in a time machine. Let's go take a look at how this whole problem was solved for the very first time, more than 5 centuries ago.
Okay, picture this. Florence, 1494. Business is, well, it's a mess. Merchants are just relying on their memory, maybe some scribbled notes here and there. There's no standard way to keep track of anything. And then this guy, a Franciscan friar named Luca Pacioli, he publishes a guide on something he calls double-entry bookkeeping. And with that, he literally changes the world.
Before Pacioli, business was just stuck. I mean, think about it. Without a system that everyone could agree on and check, how could you prove what your assets were? How could an investor possibly trust that your past performance was real? The simple answer is you couldn't. Business couldn't grow beyond your small circle of people you already knew.
And this is the genius of it. Pacioli's system wasn't just about writing stuff down. No, it was about creating a verifiable architecture of truth. For every transaction, for every credit, there had to be an equal and opposite debit. The books had to balance. All of a sudden, personal trust gets replaced by systematic verification. You didn't have to know the merchant anymore. You just had to audit their books. And what's so fascinating is, who won in this new era? You've heard of the legendary Medici Bank, right? Well, they became the most powerful financial force in Europe. Not because they had more gold in their vaults, but because their ledgers were flawless. They basically weaponized trust. Their competitors, still relying on handshakes and verbal promises, they just couldn't keep up.
Okay, hit the fast forward button. 500 years later, right now. Believe it or not, today's artificial intelligence is wrestling with the exact same problem.
So I know what you're probably thinking right now. What on earth does some dusty old ledger from the Renaissance have to do with the cutting-edge AI we're using today?
The answer? Oh, just everything. It is the exact same principle of verifiable proof, just wrapped up in a brand new digital package.
Just think it through. Back then, the big problem was unverified verbal claims, a merchant's word. Today, for an AI, the problem is what we call unstructured persuasive prose. You know, all that beautifully written marketing copy on your About Us page? To an AI, that's just a claim. It's not evidence. It can't be verified, and so it's immediately suspicious.
So what this means is that AI desperately needs its own modern version of Pacioli's ledger. It needs a system it can use to verify claims and build trust on its own.
And here's what it looks like, the structured data trust architecture. I know, that sounds super technical, but here's all it really means. It's about creating these verifiable digital signals, these little breadcrumbs of proof about your business, so that an AI can confirm your claims for itself without having to just take your marketing copy at its word. It turns your claims into evidence.
So how does this digital ledger work? Well, it's got a few key parts. First, you've got schema markup. Think of this like a special language you add to your website's code that clearly states the facts for an AI. That's your main verification layer. Then, cross-platform consistency is the audit trail. It's just making sure your story is identical on your website, your LinkedIn, your Google profile, everywhere. And then things like relationship and review markup, they act like cosigners, providing that extra layer of validation.
Okay, so that's the theory. But how do you actually do this? How do you build this for your own business? Let's get practical and walk through it step by step.
Step 1 is a reality check. You've got to start with an audit. You need to find out what an AI can already prove about you. And for most businesses, the answer is not much. So step 2 is to document. This is where you create page 1 of your digital ledger using basic schema to lock in the fundamental facts: who you are, what you're called, and where you are.
Next up,
You verify. This is where you add all the details. Every claim you make about your services, your team, your history, each one becomes a documented line item in your ledger. And finally, you validate. This is the big one. It's the modern way of balancing the books. You have to make sure every piece of data is perfectly consistent everywhere online. Because if the books don't balance, poof, trust is gone.
And what this all boils down to is a really massive shift in how we think about our online presence. The goal is to stop telling an AI that you're an expert. You have to stop trying to convince it. Instead, you need to start documenting structured evidence so that the AI can look at the facts and come to that conclusion all by itself.
All right, so as we start to wrap this up, let's make the final entry in our ledger. Let's focus on the single biggest takeaway you need to remember from all of this.
If you remember only one thing, make it this. AI doesn't trust what you claim. It trusts what you document in structured form. That's it. That's the whole game. It was the crucial lesson from 500 years of commerce, and it's even more important in our digital world today. Claims are just air. Documented proof is what builds real trust.
So I'll leave you with one final question to think about for your own business. Take a hard look at your online presence, your website, all of your profiles. Are you just making claims, or are you providing structured, verifiable evidence? Because in the age of AI, the answer to that question is going to define your future.